indicate in the chat. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's session. As you've seen, it's going to be on Power BI service and deployment pipelines. Okay, so this is one of those series where we are covering, creating awareness around the bootcamp that is coming up and trying to show you some of the things that we are going to cover. Oh, perfect. Thanks, Brian. So I'm going to share the bootcamp link. The bootcamp is a 9 weeks instructor-led virtual bootcamp that will start next month. It will start August 3, which is in, I think, maybe next weekend, actually. It will start next weekend. So it means you have to, if you're interested, then is it next weekend or per weekend? August 3. So help me look in your calendar and figure out where that is. So it's going to cover Microsoft Excel, Power BI, and SQL. And there's a free track and there's a paid track. So I'm going to share the link right now, since I can just share the registration link to register and take advantage of it. There's both the free and the paid. So if you are not interested in paying, you just do it for free. Okay. So this is brought to you by your BizEdge, also in conjunction with MHS Analytics. In fact, this webinar I'm going to I'll be using our MHS Analytics artifacts. So that way I've prepared a lot of what I'm going to do already on it. So it makes it easier. But I'm just letting you know that your BizEdge and MHS Analytics are the ones powering both this webinar and also that bootcamp. And if you are in Nigeria and you need training services, consulting services on data analytics, then feel free to reach out to us. That's what we do day in, day out. I'm going to share this link of our resources. Let me drag another screen up. Yes, perfect. So you can access our paid, free and premium resources so these are digital resources that you can access. Okay. Right. Then MHS Analytics is our Canadian arm where we provide same services for the North American market. Okay. So I'm going to start with the demo now. Start the demo. We are fewer today because we didn't make any announcement for this. I didn't do any reminders and any of that. So I'm not surprised that fewer people joined. So I'm going to bring on screen the environment I'm going to use for the webinar. Okay, great. Change my display settings. I'm going to set the zoom size to be 250 so that you can see very boldly the things I share. I think this should work. This should look clearer at your end, I hope. All right, so we are all familiar with using Power BI desktop, I'm checking my second screen. Great. So I'm sure we're familiar with using Power BI desktop. What's been different over the years now is that a lot more of the features are moving away from the Power BI desktop application itself to more of the Power BI service. So what do I mean? So for instance, this is the Power BI desktop. Almost all the times we talk about Power BI, we focus a lot on this. We are usually maybe telling you about what is new on the in terms of functionality, or we are diving into a formula, or we're talking about modeling, or we're talking about going into Power Query side and trying to create, something, showcase a very great way to do your data cleaning. So that's most of what a lot of us in the Power BI space talk about. And that is good because truthfully, for anyone to use Power BI, they need to start with that aspect of Power BI. They need to build what they need to publish and share here. And the reporting itself is done here anyway. So it makes sense that a lot of times we trainers, presenters, we focus a lot about this. But what is now very, very different. In fact, if you try to do the Power BI certification exam, you'll be amazed by how much there is outside of this Power BI desktop that you also need to be knowledgeable on. And that's what I intend to share about today. So I'm going to talk about Power BI service itself. So this is the Power BI service. You'll see that for mine, it's got a lot of things. It's because I enabled Fabric. What I'm going to do is I'll go to my workspace. And that way you will see much fewer. Anyway, at least it's cleared out some of the things I didn't want you to be distracted by. So what are the things that on a day by day, so I work as a Power BI developer for a client that I need to work from Monday to Friday on Power BI, and I do a bit of data engineering. So, what are the key things that I see myself doing day in, day out within the Power BI service environment, right? So, let's start with number one, the fact that there are two major artifacts that you have to be very conversant with using. You are not supposed to create reports within my workspace. So what do I mean? If I have a report that I've designed in Power BI, so I'm going to open a report that I actually have designed in Power BI. Okay, so while this is opening, okay, I'm using a very fast PC, so this is working to my advantage. If you have any questions, please feel free to also ask in the chat. Okay, I'm monitoring the chat. So I have this report, right? I've done the redesign, as usual, I've done some data transformation. I've, done whatsoever I need to do on the Power Query side. I've done whatever is needed to be done on the modeling side. I've created some DAX functions that I think I need. So the truth is that uh, when I'm done, I will eventually need to publish this report, right? So when you hit publish, let me say save. I've not done anything, right? You'll see that it shows my workspace, it shows other ones. But the truth is, if this is your first time doing Power BI and your account is new, you will only see my workspace. Okay, so which means that the default for every person starting with Power BI is this my workspace. So how are we supposed to use my workspace? My workspace is something that if you're on Power BI free, like you don't have a paid license, that's the only thing you can create. So that's the default anyway. Then the moment you have a license, then you can create other workspaces. But most importantly, whatever is meant to be, just imagine you work in an office area. You've got an open floor office. There are other colleagues, you work alongside. So your team works in a particular workspace area. Okay. I can call up to, hey, Akim over there. I can call up to, we can see ourselves. I can walk up to you. So that's a workspace. Now, my cabinet, my desk, you can think of my desk as my workspace, my personal workspace. Whatever I put at my desk, put in my cabinet, I don't expect you to go open it. It's something that it's just for me to see. Okay. It's not ready yet to give everybody else. So my workspace is something like that. It's like your own personal area within Power BI where something you are trying out the new feature, you're testing out something, then that's what you put in my workspace. Okay. So what that means is generally within a company environment, you will not be using my workspace because what happens is if you put something in my workspace, if you leave the company, it goes with you. Nobody else can access it. Secondly, other people cannot collaborate with you on whatever you put on my workspace. Thirdly, too, is that there are some features of Power BI that will not work on my workspace. Some collaborative features, some advanced, I call them advanced features and settings, but essentially all of the full tools, bouquet of tools that you can use within Power BI are not available in my workspace. For instance, if I click on new, right, I'm going to do a screenshot. Because I'm on the Fabric tenant, it's showing some of the things that I'm not of the intention to show you, okay? But anyway, I'll do a screenshot. You get the main idea of what I want to say, like data flow and some other things. So these screenshots, I've taken it. I'm going to go to, so number one is we need to know how to create a workspace. I'm going to create a workspace. I will call this webinar demo. Okay. Okay, demo workspace for the webinar. All right. So creating a workspace is not difficult. You just give it a name, give it a description, and then here you can choose what license mode to attach to the workspace. Okay. So when you create a workspace, it has to stay within a license, like a capacity. We call it capacity. So it's either I'm choosing Pro. Pro is the basic, let me put it that way. Pro is the minimum that you can be on. Okay. So if you're on a Pro license, which is $10 per user per month, you have like the basic features. Nowadays, it's the basic features you get. Then you can be on a premium. So there are two types of premium. There's premium per user, which is about, I think, $45 per user per month. So this gives you like the standard features. Let me call it, now it's premium, but to be sincere, it's more like it gives you the standard features. A lot of things are becoming to be limited on the Pro license. So you find out that premium is becoming like the standard, and Pro is becoming basic. And when you don't have a license, it's free, you're on free. Okay. So premium per user is the standard license that is kind of affordable, right? And then there is the premium capacity, which is the true premium. So this is what companies who have got the budget and they want the full bouquet of tools within Power BI, they subscribe to the premium capacity. So the main difference between premium per user and premium is the fact that when you're on premium per user, it is attached to only me. But when I'm on premium capacity, when a company purchases premium capacity, they can put as many users as they want, within give them ability to access the premium capacity, consume the reports that are created within the premium capacity. And then maybe a few users will be given the license to build reports to be the developers. And everybody else can just be consumers. Whereas when you're on premium per user, everybody else, or when you're on Pro, everybody else that consume your report need to be on at least a Pro license. And then some people we need to be on a premium for them to even do, access some of the things that you have built. So premium per user is good for a trainer, someone exploring, or you have a small team and you cannot afford to pay premium capacity, then you can do premium per user. But when you want the full feature, then you have to be on premium capacity. So I'm going to just put this workspace I'm creating on Pro, because that's what most of us will have access to, except you've had to put your hand into your pockets to pay a lot more than most of us typically would pay. So Pro is what most people will have, especially if you have the bundled with Microsoft license. Like for us, we have E5 license that comes with Power BI. So I'm going to create this workspace and do apply. By the way, Fabric is the new, I'm sure you've heard about Fabric, right? It's the new Power, not just Power BI, like the entire BI and data engineering as a service. So I'm going to do Pro, then I'll show you something different later on. I'll do apply. So it's creating that. I now have that workspace that we've created right now, which means it becomes accessible to me within Power BI desktop. So if I go back here, I cancel this publish, I hit publish again, I should see, yes, it keeps asking me to save. Now I see that webinar demo, right? So I'm going to publish into it. If you have any questions, please feel free to put your question in. Okay, so I publish into it. I'm able to see that it's successful. If I go right into this workspace and I refresh, I should see the report that I've published. So I'm going to see two things. I will see the report and the semantic model. So the semantic model is the data set, where it used to be called just data set, but now it's semantic model, and I guess it's because they want to let it reflect the fact that it is not just data, but data that has been also related, the different artifacts related to one another, like a model proper. And also, too, you could have things that are already built from something else, So, semantic model and report. If you're already familiar with Power BI, like from an explanation point of view, we say you can also have a dashboard, right? So, let's start with the semantic model and the report. Those are the only two things you can create from within this Power BI desktop. Are you following? You cannot create a dashboard from here. So if you need a dashboard, you will go to the reports. So I'm going to open this in a new tab. So you go to the reports and then you pick maybe a few things you want to make sure up on a dashboard. So I'm not going to be very picky about the logic. I'm just going to put the two charts that I have. I'm going to put the two charts that I have on in. I'm trying to pin them as a dashboard. So pinning, if you click on pin visual, it's going to tell you to pick an existing dashboard or a new dashboard. Because I don't have an existing dashboard, it gives me only the new dashboard. So I'll say webinar, adventure works. Let me just call it sales dashboard, sales dashboard. So it is only from Power BI service that you can create a dashboard. If I click on go to this dashboard, now you see it. Now, if I go back to that workspace, you will see I now have three different types of resources. I've got the semantic model and the report that we published from within the Power BI desktop. And now I have the dashboard, okay? So that's the one of the things that you can only do from within the Power BI service. And dashboard has other things that you can share a dashboard. You can depending on the type of visuals that you've pinned, you've got some things, manage alerts. You can decide that you want some alerts to go out based on values that are there on the dashboard. You can do a few things, not so much, but there are some features that are only possible on the dashboard, especially that alert. There used to be a time where I used to focus a lot on the alert, and let's see if I can show you an example of what an alert does. I'm going to edit this report. So in the Power BI service too, you can edit the report. So I'm going to edit this report. I will create some cards. So you can edit a report. Perfect. I'll create two cards. So in this report, I've got sales, right? So which means I've created a sales. I have a sales field. So I'm going to add that sales field in here. Sales field. Okay. I think I need more space. So maybe what I'll do is I'll reduce the height of these existing visuals. So you can see I'm able to even edit report that I already have. I'm going to also reduce this a bit. Then I'll change the position. Okay, let's see. This should be maybe a little more. Okay, then let's me move this up. I'm going to reduce the font size so that I can, okay, gonna fit it in that space I have. Okay, so again, reduce the space a bit more, reduce the font size. Is go to the call out value. And go back here again. So it takes a bit of time for what I do to show. Okay, this is better. Great. So this is I'll call this total sales. I can also rename this total sales. Okay, I'm going to duplicate these. Copy, paste. Paste. Maybe one more. Okay, great. So we are this year's sales. Sales. Then I've got last year's sales field. So this will be last year's sales. Then I'm going to add, so for this quantity, let's just add sales quantity. Okay, we'll do total sales orders. The sales orders that give rise to those total sales. So total sales order. Call this sales order. Okay. And then maybe customers that generated those sales orders. So customers, total customers. Now, all of these I'm doing from within. I need this to be distinct count. Yeah. Okay, customers. Okay. All right. So I can format the. Okay, let's leave that for now. I'm looking at time and other things I want to do. So if I pin these to the dashboard, maybe pin sales order 2 to the dashboard. Okay. So you see this set alert. Before, this set alert used to be only in the dashboard side, but if I go to dashboard, you'll see a bit of a difference now. So I'm going to save this report here. Go back to reading view, then go back to sales dashboard. Yeah. So these are the things I pinned, and you see, if I click on manage alert, when I did that manage alert here, nothing came up. Actually, I'm surprised that it shows manage alert. So before, it would be disabled for multi-variable visuals. Like I've got two different line things depicted here, last year sales and sales. So for some reasons, they've not created the ability to manage alerts on them to create alerts. But for single metric visual, manage alerts used to work. And so now you see it's here. You can combine it with Power Automate. So if something happens here, it triggers something else on Power Automate. So let's see. So I can say whenever the sales maybe goes above 40 million, 41, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I want to be notified maybe at least once a day, so, or if I want to be notified every hour, that would be a lot of emails anyway. But once a day is okay. So whenever that happens, be it at midnight, be it, on a weekend, you get an email that is pushed to you, not until you go check the report. So that's a lot. I'm going to go back. There's some other things you can do from here, but I want to cover a lot. So I'll just go back to the report itself. So I'm going to go to the reports. Great. And now I've created this within the Power BI service, these new cards. Okay. Now you see this. There's one more thing that I can do from here. View semantic model. I'm going to reduce my screen size. Edit. Yeah, this is it. You see this open data model, right? It does not show as enabled. But once I make a small system change to my workspace, settings change to my workspace, it becomes enabled. And what does that allow me to do? The kinds of formulas that we create within the Power BI desktop, it makes it possible to create within the Power BI service. So I'm going to go to my workspace, go to this workspace that I've created. I will go to Edit, to Workspace Settings. Then I'll go to Power BI. I'll go to General. You see data model settings. Users can edit data models in a Power BI service. It's a preview tool right now. Once you enable it now, and you go back to the report, and I go to edit here, it becomes enabled. I can click on it, right? And then once I do that, I'm able to write DAX. I'm even able to access, relationship. You can delete relationship, create new relationship, and this is on the Power BI service. So these are things that previously you couldn't do on the Power BI service. And the advantage of this is those who use Mac or who use systems that cannot install Power BI desktop, they are now able to have more of the functionality they need within the Power BI service. And so I'm guessing in the future, maybe there will be no more. Microsoft will try to not make Power BI have this Power BI desktop. It will just be a full cloud tool, and that way anybody with any PC can use it. So I see that. I kind of feel like that's something they are gradually working towards. So I don't know if nobody from Microsoft has said that, but it just looks natural. Almost every other tool is becoming that way. All the other tools they are competing with, Sigma, ClickView. Well, I'm not so sure about Click, but Sigma and many other tools that are really being used by customers are completely web-based. So that way, it's not tied to your operating system, unlike Microsoft Power BI that you need to have a Microsoft Windows PC for you to install the Power BI desktop. And that this is not just the relationship alone that you can do. You can, access the DAX and make changes. You can create new column, new measures. So you can even do a calculation group. You can manage rows. So these are things that we were able to do only in the Power BI desktop. Okay, so I'm going to move away from here because I have some other things to show you. So I'll go back to the workspace. So 3 things we've established. One is that you can only create report and semantic model from within the Power BI desktop. Dashboard you can create from within the Power BI service itself. Dashboard allows you to pin reports from different places to one dashboard. So instead of having to share multiple reports, for instance, you might have someone who needs to see a sales report, but you want them to also see maybe a supply chain component, something that is only from that, you don't want to share with them the supply chain report because they're not meant to see everything. They're not meant to access the entire supply chain report. You just want them to see a few things from different other places. So that's why a dashboard can be useful. You pin exactly only the things they need to see from different places into a dashboard, and you share only the dashboard with them. So it's got a strategic use that a report is not possible to do with. So now that I've explained that, what other important thing is it that you need to be aware of? For the semantic model, there are a lot of settings that pop up from within the Power BI service. Unlike here in Power BI desktop, you don't really do much on your model beyond creating relationship and maybe creating new columns, But within here, when you go to your model, you can access a lot more like complementary services. I'll touch on the most important ones, okay? So let's talk about security. Security is where you complete the row level security part of it. So for instance, if I have created different rows, so let's say, let's go here, and then I just need to find, yeah. So if I create different rows, let's see, maybe for different stores, this person. I want to just look for something easy. 33. Let's go and check what is under 33. So I've got sales territory. I've got groups. This might make sense. North America, Europe, Pacific. North America, Europe, and Pacific. So I could, create roles that mirror these different regions. So I'll come here and say, I want to, based on territory, sales territory, create and like a group is equal to North America. And I'm going to show data if any of these rows are. So that one was confusing me. I'm used to more this experience. So I'm going to do save, then I have to give it a name. The name will be here. North America. Okay. So I'm going to copy this. I'll create another one. I'll give it a name, Europe. And switch to the exact data, paste. So this will be Europe. Save. New group. Ta-da. Something blocking my screen. Something went wrong. And I think there's Pacific. Pacific. Okay, it's saved. I have to restart the Power BI. Close all window. Save my changes. Power BI. So I'm going to show you how those rules we've used and shakes with security for you to apply row level security. So let's just confirm that those rules I created are there. Oh, this is painful. Okay. North America. Switch to DAX. Group is equal to North America. Save. Europe. Switch to DAX. Save. Yeah. Pacific. Switch to DAX. Pacific. Okay. Close. Save. Confirm that the rule's perfect. So, and then let's create one that shows everything. Global. So global is not going to have any filtering. Great. So I'm going to publish this. Publish, save, publish it on top of the one I already have. Yes, it will ask me, do I want to replace it? So I'll say yes. Okay. Okay, great. So if I go back here and I go back to the data set settings and I go back to security, you'll see all those roles now show up here. So I can attach the roles to different, I could be like, okay, this person should be for Europe. So I'll be like, I come here, I can add, I can say this person is meant to be for Europe. I can add someone else. I can add someone else for Pacific bootcamp. For Pacifics. And I can test as roles. So I can say, oh, what if this is the person who opens the report? What will the person see? So the results is looking different. So this is working. See, I can only see the countries that are in that region. I can again switch it and say, well, I want to test out someone who is in Pacific, and the person will see only the. So this is one of those things you need to be comfortable doing within Power BI service. So I'm going to go back still here. So that's security. What about settings? So this is another important place you would have to go to. This is where we set, if you needed to connect using a data gateway, this is where you will have to link it up to the correct data gateway. In my own case, I'm using a cloud DB. So I didn't need to connect to data gateway. Sometimes it might lose connection. I will just need to re-enter my credential. So then you can enable daily refresh and say maybe it should refresh every 6 a.m. in the morning. And then if there's any errors, do you want it to email some people? Yes, it should send me an email whenever there's a failure. So this is another common usage area for the Power BI service. Like in a production environment, we typically do this a lot because you want to be notified when it fails. You want to automatically refresh your reports. Okay, so there are other things, but like I said, I'm cherry picking the most important ones. So I will go back then, but before I go back, I'm going to turn this off so I don't forget. Otherwise, I'll be getting emails or I'll be using up resources. So I'll go back here. Another thing is, so we've talked about settings, security. You see, analyze in Excel. When you click this, it's going to download an Excel file. So open in Web in Excel. So this exposes your Power BI model to be usable within Excel. I can just tell this to open from within Excel. Go here, go to, I think it's here, I'll go there, info, open in my desktop, and then I'm able to carry on the stuff here. So this is another thing I use a lot in my day-to-day work for clients. So sometimes they've got some reports that people still use in Excel, or we want the data to come from Power BI because we've been able to leverage Power BI to do these daily refresh, that I showed you now, where I was able to set up daily refresh. So we've already set up those things in Power BI, and we don't want the user to repeat all those processes within Excel anymore. We want the user to just bring in the data that is already existing in Power BI. So it comes in form of a pivot table. So you're able to add, all the stuffs that have been created in Power BI. The user can bring them into Excel and access them. You can see the security level is so much. It keeps asking me to log in. So this is another thing that you need to be familiar with. I'm going to go back here to the workspace. So those are the three most important, if you ask me, those are the three most important ones. Every other one you can explore, but you really need to be familiar with when to do analyze in Excel, creatively use it, security, settings. View lineage will just show you, the data set is what's feeding from. Okay, there's a SQL server beneath it that is used to create the semantic model that now feeds the report. So this can be informational, but I make sure I've mentioned the ones that I want you to be familiar with. So that's not just it, right? Nowadays, you also need to be familiar with deployment pipeline. So what is a deployment pipeline? You see here, deployment pipelines. So I'm going to click on it. So deployment pipelines allow you to create like different work environments. So this is the paradigm. This is the logic behind why you should use a deployment pipeline. Typically, you want to have the same environment that your fellow developers will work in to be separate from where the business users will also access. So what it means is that we're going to create different environments for different categories of users. So I'm just going to call this webinar demo again. And so I can create a development environment, a UAT environment. You can create as many as you want. Some people would say, oh, they want a pre-prod environment, a pre-production environment, but usually 3 environments are the almost like user industry norm. So development, UAT or test environment, and production. This is way more common. So I'm going to create these 3 environments. So once I do this, it will ask me to assign a workspace to each one. Okay, so I need to reduce the zoom so that I can see more. Okay, great. So I need to assign, this is where you manage, blah, blah, blah. So I need to, if I go to dev, great. This is, you couldn't find any workspaces. Because I was hoping to see a workspace to assign. You see this message, we couldn't find any workspaces for you to assign. Why is this telling me that I cannot find any workspace for me to assign? Let me tell you why. When I already have a pipeline running where I have assigned these ones. So this is already assigned to a pipeline. You see the pipeline. I've assigned fabric UAT, fabric production. So it means that these 1, 2, 3 have already been assigned. I can't assign one workspace to multiple pipelines, So those ones are not available. Then why is it not showing me my webinar demo? The reason is that when you create a workspace that is in Pro, you cannot use it for deployment pipeline. So now, if I want to use this for deployment pipeline, I will need to change it from a Pro to something. So let's try so that at least you see all that is possible. So let's say I change it to premium per user, right? So I change it to see premium per user. I do select. So now let's go check. Will it allow me to see it? Okay, let's go confirm. If I go back to the deployment pipeline and I go to the webinar I've done, and you see now I can access it. Once I put it in premium, it becomes accessible for me to use. So now you are beginning to see the differences between the license types. So when you're on Pro, you don't have access to deployment pipeline. When you're on Premium, then yes, you can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign it to make it the production. Okay. So I'll say assign it as a workspace. And then I'm going to tell it to create So I'm going to say deploy. I want to push backwards. So I'm going to say deploy to previous stage. Okay. So once it deploys to previous stage, which means it will deploy to UAT, it will automatically create a UAT environment workspace for me. See? So now I have the webinar demo UAT. And it's pushing all the content from here backwards. So this is one of those things you also have to be familiar with. You also you should know how to use. Then I'm going to say, okay, from here I should go backwards again. So this backwards that I'm going, I'll tell you why this is better than going forward for the first time. Okay, so you see this that I've created, it says webinar demo development, webinar demo UAT, webinar demo, right? I'm going to go back here to workspace and I'll go to another. Let's go to this one. Let's go here. Let's read it. Deployment pipeline. Now you see this one is the reverse. I've got fabric, then I've got fabric UAT, fabric production. What happened is I had created fabric at first and put stuffs in there. So I assigned that one to development and then I started pushing forwards. I started pushing push forward. So when I pushed forward, it created UAT, created prod, and then anyone that you use the deployment pipeline to create any workspace you create by virtue of using deployment pipeline for the first time, it will have this square bracket and the environment stage. So for me, this so in most environments in proper software development, most times the production does not have a label. Production is just like the exact name. It is the other ones that get labels. So for instance, if you have a software, like for instance, we have a tool we are building fast on tree. Now this will be the prod. Now if we are creating a UAT and dev version of it, it will most likely be like dev dot fast on tree, UAT dot fast on tree, right? It is those ones that we carry as an additional label, not the other way around. Not that it will be, prod will now have its own label, which is what has now happened in mine, where prod is having its own label. That's not the norm. It is what is the norm is this. This is more common. The other environment will have a label, then the prod will not have any label. So that's why assigning that your existing workspace to prod and pushing backwards is way more common and probably more advisable. Okay, now that you know that, so how does this work? So how this works is that take for instance, I have another report. Let's see if I can find another report I can use. Database. Let's try this. Hope this is not too big in size. I'm looking at it. It says 600 and something meg. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Okay, no, this has nothing to use. So let me go check. Let's see what I have here. I think this was another webinar I did for MX Excel Toronto Club. I hope it has reports. Okay, great. So at least this has got reports stuffs in it. So if I hit publish, right? And I pick the deployment, so I'll pick the development environment. So that's one of the other reasons why it makes sense to do that approach. Because right now, this is confusing. It's now Fabric that is the deployment development. So this would be the right thing for me to do. I'll pick this as development, that it should publish into the development workspace. And then when it finishes publishing into the development workspace, right, then I will begin to now, so if I refresh here, it will show me that I have some reports in development. I've got this that is not here. So for a while, we do work on here. So I will contact my other dev guys. They will do sometimes we do some tests. We're doing just some development exploration. Oh, there's a new tool Power BI as a new feature that Power BI has added. Let's try to use it. Let's do a POC. So we do that amongst ourselves. So for a while, the report will stay here. Then when we are done, we are ready for the business team now. At least the product team, let me call it product team. So is the BA, the business analyst, product manager, to have some access to it. Then I will now push it from here. Push the report you have to push both the report and the data model, the semantic model. So I'll say, okay, yes, I want to deploy it now to the next stage. Then I usually had a note, first deployment to UAT. Then I click deploy. So it will push it now to UAT. I'll share the link, usually maybe in this place. So what we also do is here, let me refresh so that it picks all the new workspace. So now I have all those. So what typically we would have done is would have added all the dev guys. We'll have added them here. We'll have added people who need to be able to, maybe this person is meant to be a contributor. Then we'll have added another set of people, a different set of people, those dev people too, plus an additional set of people. So I'll have added the same. So the best way to add this user is using AD, access directory groups. That's the more practical way. So that way you can move people without coming in to change things. But just for demonstration's sake, so I would have added the same people who are in dev and had also, people, new set of people. So I can add bootcamp or another set of persons and say, okay, this is the users who should be able to see the business analyst, the scrum master, those people who need to access to be able to see this and test it and give us some feedback, before we will now have the final business users will be in prod. So in prod, access, so we can add the final business users. I'm just going to add some set of people, add demo, and everybody that I added previous environment will also be here. Then I will just change a bit of their access type. So, this person is meant to just consume. Maybe this person is meant to be a contributor. And so how that works is when we are done, so if I'm here now, once we are done with the testing, then we can now move it to prod. And that's when those people who are only given access to prod can now see those reports, first prod deployment. Okay, so this is the usual pattern for using the deployment pipeline. And what's more interesting is I can't do that today because, time is up, but I can show you because I have the artifact. You can now also hook it up to a deployment pipeline proper, So I have a deployment pipeline that already works for this, this one, this project, this fabric-based one. So I have a deployment pipeline where once I publish a report using GitHub to this repo, it will trigger. So let me show you the one that has run already. Library, pipeline. Let's see, pipeline run. Okay, anyway. So if I run a pipeline, you see stages of the multi-stage pipeline variables. I want to show you the run that I've done already. Okay, I'll go back here, go to branch. Okay, great. So I'll show you what I've done already. So I've connected dev, UAT, and main to different stages here. So I'll show you that. I went here, workspace, I connected fabric, I connected it to dev. See, I connected this to dev. And how can you do that? Simply quickly show you how that is done. So if you go to workspace settings and you go to Git, so you can connect via Git, and before it used to be just Azure DevOps, but now you can even use GitHub, So that was what I did. I used this approach to connect to dev, and I'm not going to do this because it will wipe away this one here, but I'm just showing you. So that's how I connected these ones. So I connected this to dev, the dev to dev, deployment to dev. I connected also the UAT to UAT. So if you come here, see, connected UAT to UAT. Then I connected prod to main branch. So then I set up a rule that it's only via a pull request PR that you can merge, you can update the production. So I'm going to show you all of that here. So see here, more options, branch policies. So I said that anytime someone publishes into, where is it? Branch validation. Let's see this one. So anytime for this, it's only when you do a pull request. Let me show you. Only when you do a pull request, it will automatically update this. So only build a pipeline. It will build a pipeline. Then the pipeline is fabric. And it will trigger whenever the branch is updated. It will do an instant deployment to start building instantly. So that way, the moment you do a PR, you update the report instantly, it will trigger some checks. Let me see if I can show you the checks. I did some approval checks. My time is up. Maybe I'll do this on another day. This approval, the deployment pipeline one, but I can quickly show you some interesting things about the rules one can create. So I save the JSON, great. So this opening notepad. So I can create rules where if, okay, make sure you do this. If the rules are broken, the deployment to production will fail. So the report will not go to production. Instead, automatic deployment to production will fail whenever these rules are broken. So there are policies. Let me show you. There are two policies. One is for the data set, another is for the report layer. And whenever any one of them is broken, those policies are broken. So these are the policies that you can say maybe avoid floating data points. Is availability. So there is a template which maybe I'll mention. Then you can modify. There must always be. You can set up your deployment rules that it checks for those rules. Hide foreign keys. Relationship must be this integer formatting. A whole lot of rules you can edit. And so if those rules fail, deployment will fail. So let me show you one such of the created. Great. So this deployment failed. Why? Because my rules were not passed. I didn't pass. I did not summarize them. So once those rules fail, deployment will fail. It will just say build data sets fail, build reports fail, and the pipeline will not move the report to production. So it's an interesting thing to try out. Unfortunately, like I told you, I didn't plan so well for today. I just decided to fill in for another colleague who suddenly had to go. But I hope you've been able to at least glean some insight into some of the things that are now possible within the Power BI service. So Power BI service is always evolving. You don't just limit yourself to studying and practicing on the Power BI desktop. Always explore, the new tools that are now made available within the Power BI service. So this is where we end. Any questions from anyone? Okay, if no questions, I'm gonna just end the session. If you want to speak, you can raise your hand and I will unmute you. All right. So in that case, I'll say thank you. And don't forget that you can sign up for the bootcamp. Let me share the link again. And just even share with people too, even if you're not interested, share with people in your network who might be interested. And we might, in the bootcamp, we'll cover Power BI. We might not do deployment pipelines because people need to go in stages, but I think I should. I'll cover some aspects, but it will be much more well paced. It won't be one sided where the participants are not able to practice along like we do in this webinar. Okay, so I'm going to end this session here. Thank you very, very much for being a part of today's session. And there will be a Power BI session. The only thing is, I'm not so sure. The speaker kind of said he's not feeling fine, so we don't yet know. I've sent him an email to confirm if maybe we should postpone, but I guess we'll just wait and see in the next 1 hour if that one we hold. But thank you for joining this one and have a wonderful week ahead. Bye. Thank you.